As dawn's tender rays seeped through the threadbare curtains of Sarah Miller's humble abode, they bathed the time-worn furniture and peeling wallpaper in a gentle, almost ethereal light. This small house, tucked away in a quaint Midwestern town, wore its history of financial hardship like battle scars. The ceiling bore the telltale signs of water damage, and the once vibrant carpet now lay frayed and faded, a silent testament to years of struggle. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Sarah, a dedicated 26-year-old nurse, bustled about in the cramped, cluttered kitchen. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, providing a momentary solace amid the chaos. She swiftly set a plate of scrambled eggs on the table and placed a bowl of cat food in its usual spot. Her loyal feline companion, whiskers twitching in anticipation, trotted over and began to eat with gusto. "Good morning," Dad Sarah murmured softly as she stepped into her father's room. Robert Miller, elderly and frail, greeted her with a gentle smile. His illness had wrought havoc on both their lives, yet his spirit remained unbroken, a beacon of resilience in their shared struggle. "Morning, sweetheart," he replied, his voice weak but imbued with warmth. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm fine," Dad Sarah lied, her smile a mask of forced cheerfulness. "Just a bit tired from work, that's all." Robert's eyes, though clouded by age, saw through her facade. "You work too hard. Take care of yourself too." "Sarah," she nodded, handing him his medication. "I will, Dad. I promise." After ensuring her father was comfortable, Sarah grabbed her bag and hurried out the door, the weight of her responsibilities pressing heavily on her weary shoulders. The bus ride to City Hospital was long and jarring, giving her ample time to brood over her burdens. As she traversed the hospital corridors, the sterile scent of disinfectant and the incessant beeping of medical equipment filled the air, heightening her sense of unease. Sarah's heart raced as she approached the surgical ward, where she toiled under the watchful, often intimidating, gaze of Mark Donovan, the chief surgeon. "Miss Miller," his deep voice echoed as she entered the staff room. His presence was imposing, his demeanor a disconcerting blend of authority and condescension. "You're late." "I'm sorry, Doctor," Donovan Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. "The bus was delayed." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Excuses won't keep this hospital running. I expect better from you." Sarah nodded, her jaw tightening in frustration. The tension between them was palpable, rooted in his relentless, inappropriate advances. His touch lingered too long, his compliments always laced with a suggestive undertone. Sarah's unease grew with each passing day, but she felt trapped, needing the job to support her ailing father. That evening, Sarah sought refuge in a cozy cafe nestled across from the hospital. She chose a secluded corner table, wrapping her hands around a steaming cup of coffee, attempting to soothe her troubled mind. The oppressive weight of her circumstances bore down on her, a suffocating anxiety knotting in her chest. "Are you all right?" a gentle voice interrupted her solitude. Sarah looked up, meeting the eyes of a man whose clothes were worn and weathered, yet his smile radiated warmth and sincerity. "I'm fine," she responded automatically, hastily wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. The man hesitated before sitting across from her. "I'm Tom. It seems like you could use someone to talk to." Sarah studied him, then sighed deeply. "I'm Sarah. I've just had a really tough day." Tom nodded, his eyes brimming with understanding. Sometimes talking to a stranger can be cathartic. No judgments, just a willing ear. Without fully understanding why, Sarah began to pour her heart out to Tom. She spoke of her father's relentless illness, her overwhelming struggles at work, and the suffocating tension with Mark Donovan. Tom listened intently, his eyes reflecting deep empathy. When Sarah left the cafe that evening, she felt a flicker of hope. Meeting Tom had been a serendipitous encounter, his kindness offering her a fleeting respite from her burdens. The following morning, as Sarah prepared to leave for the hospital, her father's voice called out to her. "Sarah, remember what I said. Take care of yourself, I will. Dad," she promised, her voice imbued with renewed resolve. The fluorescent lights of the hospital cast a harsh glare over the surgical area, the sterile environment a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil brewing within Sarah. She moved through her tasks robotically, her mind a tumult of anxiety and dread. The previous day's encounter with Dr. Mark Donovan loomed large in her thoughts. His insinuations and unwelcome touches had escalated over the weeks, making her dread each shift. As she prepped for yet another surgery, the tension in the room was almost tangible. "Miss Miller, I need you to focus." Mark's voice sliced through her thoughts, sharp and commanding. His eyes locked onto hers, a silent menace lurking beneath the surface. Sarah's hands trembled as she handed him the surgical instruments. "I am focused, Doctor Donovan," she replied, her voice barely concealing her fear. Mark's lips curled into a smug smile. "Good, we can't afford any mistakes." The surgery dragged on, each moment stretching Sarah's nerves to their breaking point. Finally, it was over. As Sarah began to clean up, Mark cornered her in the supply room. His breath was hot and oppressive against her ear. "You should learn to relax, Sarah," he whispered, his hand grazing her waist. "It would make things much easier for both of us." Sarah recoiled, her anger and frustration boiling over. "I am here to work, not to be your plaything," she snapped, pushing him away. Mark's expression darkened with malice. "You're making a big mistake, Sarah. Don't think you're irreplaceable." The threat hung in the air as Sarah stormed out, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and defiance. She knew the repercussions of defying Mark could be severe, but she could no longer endure his harassment. That evening, Sarah found herself back in the familiar cafe across from the hospital. The warm, inviting atmosphere sharply contrasted with the cold, clinical environment she had just left behind. She slumped into a corner booth, cradling a cup of coffee in her hands, trying to steady her racing thoughts. "Rough day?" a gentle voice inquired. Sarah glanced up to see Tom Bradford standing by her table, his kind eyes brimming with concern. Despite his shabby appearance, there was a warmth to him that made Sarah feel safe. "You could say that," she replied, managing a weak smile. Tom slid into the seat across from her, his presence instantly calming. "Want to talk about it for a moment?" Sarah hesitated. Then, taking a deep breath, she began to spill everything: Mark's relentless harassment, her fear of losing her job, and the overwhelming pressure of caring for her ailing father. Tom listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each word. "That sounds incredibly tough, Sarah. No one should have to go through that alone." Sarah's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know what to do, Tom. I can't quit my job, but I can't keep going like this either." Tom reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on hers. "You're stronger than you think. Don't let that man destroy your spirit. There are people who care about you and will support you." Sarah nodded, wiping away her tears. "Thank you, Tom. It helps just to talk to someone." Tom smiled. "Anytime, Sarah. Remember, you're not alone." As the evening wore on, Sarah felt a sense of relief. She left the cafe with a glimmer of hope, bolstered by Tom's kindness. But the reality of her situation still loomed large, and she knew the hardest part was yet to come. The following morning, as she was preparing to leave for the hospital, her phone rang. Her heart sank as she listened to the stern voice on the other end. "Miss Miller, we need to discuss your recent behavior. Please come to the office immediately." Sarah's stomach churned with anxiety as she made her way to the hospital. She knew this could be the end of her career. As she entered the administrative office, Mark Donovan was there, his smug expression confirming her worst fears. "Miss Miller, your actions yesterday were completely unacceptable," the administrator began. "Doctor Donovan has raised serious concerns about your conduct." Sarah's mind raced. She knew Mark had twisted the situation to his advantage. "He's lying," she protested. "He's been harassing me for weeks, and I finally stood up to him." The administrator looked skeptical. "These are serious allegations, Ms. Miller. We will investigate, but for now you are suspended pending further review." Sarah's world crumbled. She left the office in a daze, her career hanging by a thread. As she exited the hospital, the weight of her predicament pressed down on her. In a daze, she wandered back to the cafe, where Tom was waiting. "What happened?" he asked, seeing the devastation on her face. "I've been suspended," she said, her voice breaking. "Mark's lies are destroying my life." The dimly lit living room of Sarah's home mirrored her state of mind. Shadows clung to the corners, and the silence was broken only by the ticking of an old clock. Sarah sat on the worn-out couch, her thoughts racing. The suspension from the hospital hung over her like a dark cloud. She had spent the day replaying the confrontation with Mark in her mind, each memory sharpening her sense of injustice. A soft knock on the door broke her reverie. She opened it to find Tom standing there, his eyes filled with genuine concern. "Mind if I come in?" "Of course, Tom. I could use some company," Sarah replied, stepping aside to let him in. She led him to the living room and gestured for him to sit. Tom looked around, absorbing the modest surroundings. "How are you holding up?" Sarah sighed, sitting beside him. "It's been tough. I can't stop thinking about what happened. I'm scared, Tom. What if I lose my job for good?" Tom placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're stronger than you realize, Sarah. We'll figure this out together." As they talked, Sarah found herself opening up to Tom more than she had with anyone else. She shared her fears, her father's deteriorating condition, and the overwhelming pressure that seemed to suffocate her daily. "There's something I should tell you," Tom said quietly, his tone shifting. "I haven't been completely honest about my past." Sarah looked at him, curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" Tom took a deep breath. "I wasn't always homeless. I used to have a good job, a family. But I lost everything when the company I worked for went bankrupt. I couldn't find work, and eventually I ended up on the streets. It's been a long road, but meeting you has given me hope again." Sarah's heart ached for him. "I'm so sorry, Tom. I had no idea." Tom smiled, a bittersweet expression on his face. "It's okay. We all have our struggles, but it's made me realize how important it is to fight for what's right and to support each other." Moved by his honesty, Sarah felt a deeper connection to Tom. "Thank you for sharing that with me. It means a lot." Tom hesitated before speaking again. "There's something else. I want to help you fight back against Mark. I've been talking to some people who might be able to help." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "You've been doing that for me?" Tom nodded. "You deserve justice, Sarah. And I want to be there for you, every step of the way." Sarah felt a surge of gratitude and trust. "Thank you, Tom. I don't know what I'd do without you." Later that evening, as their conversation wound down, Sarah made a decision. "Tom, would you like to stay for dinner? It's not much, but I'd love to have you here." Tom smiled warmly. "I'd be honored." They shared a simple meal, the atmosphere lightened by their growing friendship. As they talked and laughed, Sarah felt a sense of normalcy returning, if only for a moment. It was the first time in weeks that she felt a glimmer of hope. After dinner, they sat together on the couch, the warmth of their companionship filling the room. "Thank you for being here, Tom," Sarah said softly. "It means more than you know." Tom took her hand in his grip gentle but reassuring. "You're not alone, Sarah. We'll get through this together." As the night drew to a close, Sarah walked Tom to the door. "Good night, Tom. And thank you again." "Good night, Sarah. Remember, you're stronger than you think." Tom replied, giving her hand a final squeeze before stepping out into the night. The next morning, Sarah woke with a renewed sense of determination. She couldn't let Mark win. She had to fight back, not just for herself, but for all the others who might be suffering in silence. With Tom by her side, she felt a newfound strength. As she prepared breakfast, Sarah's thoughts turned to the plan they had discussed. It would be risky, but it was their best shot at exposing Mark's true nature. She took a deep breath, ready to confront the battles that lay ahead. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Sarah's bedroom, casting a soft glow on her weary face. She forced herself out of bed, the weight of yesterday's events pressing heavily on her heart. "Good morning, Dad," Sarah called softly as she entered Robert's room. She paused, expecting to hear his usual reply. Instead, silence greeted her. Her heart pounded as she approached the bed. Robert lay there, his eyes closed, his face serene but his body unnaturally still. "Dad," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. She touched his hand. It was cold. Her breath caught in her throat, and tears welled up in her eyes. No, please," she pleaded, shaking him gently, but there was no response. The reality hit her like a tidal wave. Robert was gone. Sarah collapsed beside the bed, her sobs echoing through the quiet house. The world around her seemed to blur as her tears fell uncontrollably. The man who had been her rock, her source of strength, was no longer there. She felt a crushing emptiness, a pain that words could not describe. Days later, the house was filled with a somber silence. Sarah sat on the couch, numb, staring blankly at the floor. The sound of the doorbell broke her trance. She opened the door to find a solemn-faced man in a black suit. "Miss Miller, I'm sorry for your loss," he said gently. "My name is John Anderson. I'm here on behalf of Megan Stewart." Sarah blinked, confusion mingling with her grief. "Who Megan Stewart?" John repeated, handing her a business card. "She's aware of your situation and would like to offer her assistance. Please call her when you're ready." Sarah took the card, her fingers trembling. "Thank you," she murmured, barely registering his words. John nodded respectfully and left, leaving Sarah standing in the doorway, clutching the card like a lifeline. The days that followed were a blur of grief and disbelief. Friends and neighbors came to pay their respects, but Sarah felt disconnected, as if she were observing from a distance. The funeral was a small, intimate affair. Sarah stood by the grave, her eyes red and swollen from crying, as the minister spoke words of comfort that barely penetrated her sorrow. After the service, as people began to leave, Sarah noticed John Anderson standing by a sleek black car. He approached her again, offering his condolences once more. "Miss Miller, I know this is a difficult time, but please consider contacting Megan Stewart. She can help you." She watched as John drove away, her mind a swirl of confusion and despair. That evening, Sarah sat alone in her father's room, the quiet ticking of the clock the only sound. She stared at the business card, turning it over in her hands. Megan Stewart. Who was she, and why did she want to help? Desperation and curiosity gnawed at her. Taking a deep breath, Sarah picked up the phone and dialed the number. The line rang twice before a warm, authoritative voice answered. "Megan Stewart speaking." "Ms. Stewart, my name is Sarah Miller," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "Your representative, John Anderson, gave me your card." "Yes, Sarah. I've been expecting your call," Megan replied, her tone calm and reassuring. "First, let me extend my deepest sympathies for your loss. I know this must be an incredibly difficult time for you." "Thank you," Sarah whispered, tears welling up again. "I understand you've been through a lot, both personally and professionally," Megan continued. "I would like to meet with you to discuss how I can help. Would you be available tomorrow morning?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded to herself. "Yes, I can be available." "Excellent. I'll send a car to pick you up at 10 a.m. Please take care of yourself, Sarah. We'll talk soon." Sarah spent the night in a state of restless contemplation, her mind a whirlwind of grief, anxiety, and a faint glimmer of hope. She wondered who Megan Stewart was and what kind of assistance she could offer. The next morning, she dressed with care, a mix of anticipation and dread filling her chest. At precisely 10 a.m., a sleek black car pulled up in front of her house. Sarah took a deep breath, gathered her courage, and stepped outside. The drive was smooth and silent, giving Sarah time to reflect on the tumultuous events of the past few days. The car eventually pulled up to an elegant office building downtown. Sarah was greeted by a receptionist who led her to a spacious, well-lit office where Megan Stewart awaited. Megan stood, extending a hand with a warm, empathetic smile. "Sarah, it's a pleasure to meet you. Please have a seat." Sarah sat down, feeling a mix of nervousness and relief. Megan's presence was calming, her demeanor exuding confidence and understanding. "I want to help you navigate this difficult time," Megan began. "We have resources and support systems that can assist you both personally and professionally." Sarah listened, a sense of cautious optimism blooming within her. As Megan outlined the various ways she could help, Sarah felt the heavy burden on her shoulders begin to lighten. For the first time since her father's passing, she allowed herself to hope that there might be a way forward. After hanging up, Sarah felt a mix of apprehension and hope. She didn't know what to expect, but she had nothing left to lose. The following morning, she dressed in her best clothes, though they felt like a poor attempt to cover the rawness of her grief. The sleek black car glided silently through the bustling streets of downtown Chicago, a stark contrast to Sarah Miller's usual environment. She sat in the back seat, nervously fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. The luxury of the car, with its leather seats and tinted windows, felt surreal. As they approached a towering glass office building, Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. The driver opened the door for her, and Sarah stepped out, feeling dwarfed by the modern, opulent architecture. She entered the lobby, its marble floors gleaming under the bright lights, and approached the reception desk. "Miss Miller, right this way," the receptionist said with a warm smile, leading her to a private elevator. The ride to the top floor was swift, and Sarah found herself in a spacious, elegantly decorated office. Behind a large mahogany desk sat a poised woman with striking features. "Miss Miller, welcome," she greeted, standing to shake Sarah's hand. "I'm Megan Stewart." "Please, have a seat." "Thank you," Sarah replied, her voice trembling slightly. She sat down, her mind racing with questions. Megan smiled reassuringly. "I understand you've been through a lot lately. First, let me offer my condolences for your loss." "I'm truly sorry." "Thank you," Sarah said, grateful for the kind words. Megan's expression grew serious. "Sarah, I want to be transparent with you. Tom Bradford is my cousin. He's been living as a homeless man as part of a personal experiment to understand life on the streets. When he met you, he saw someone who needed help and couldn't turn away." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "Tom, he's your cousin?" "Yes," Megan confirmed. "I'm sorry if this comes as a shock. Tom wanted to gain a deeper understanding of the struggles faced by those less fortunate. Through his experiences, he's met many people in need, but when he encountered you, he felt compelled to intervene more directly." Sarah felt a mix of emotions: surprise, confusion, and a flicker of gratitude. "I had no idea," she murmured. "Tom was kind to me when I needed it the most." Megan nodded. "He's always had a big heart. And now we want to help you. I've reviewed your situation, and I believe we can offer both legal and financial assistance to address the issues at your workplace and support you during this difficult time." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't know what to say. This means so much to me." "Just know that you're not alone," Sarah, Megan said softly. "We're here to support you every step of the way." Megan outlined a plan to address the harassment Sarah had endured and offered resources to help her through her grieving process. Legal action against Mark Donovan was a key part of their strategy, and Megan assured Sarah that her team would handle everything with utmost care and discretion. Sarah left the meeting feeling a mixture of relief and determination. The weight of her grief was still heavy, but knowing she had allies gave her strength. Later that day, back in the familiarity of her home, she reflected on the whirlwind of events. Tom's kindness, Megan's support, these were the lifelines she desperately needed. As the days went by, Sarah and Megan's team worked tirelessly to build a case against Mark Donovan. Meanwhile, Tom continued to provide emotional support, their friendship deepening with each conversation. The legal proceedings were daunting, but Sarah faced them with a newfound resilience. One evening, as Sarah sat with Tom in the cozy cafe where they had first met, she felt a sense of hope she hadn't experienced in a long time. "I still can't believe everything that's happened," she said, sipping her coffee. "I don't know how I would have managed without you and Megan." Tom smiled warmly. "You're stronger than you know, Sarah. We're just helping you see that." The following weeks were a testament to Sarah's courage and determination. With Megan's expert guidance and Tom's unwavering support, Sarah navigated the complexities of her situation. The day finally came when Mark Donovan was held accountable for his actions, bringing a sense of justice and closure. As Sarah stood in the courtroom, the weight of her struggles lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the journey ahead would still have challenges, but she also knew she wasn't facing them alone. With friends like Tom and Megan, she felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. Stepping out into the sunlight, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the warmth on her face. The road had been long and difficult, but she had found her way through the darkness. Now, with hope in her heart and strength in her soul, she looked forward to the new beginning that lay ahead. Tom has always been driven by a desire to make a difference. "He told me about your situation, and we both believe that you deserve justice." Sarah felt a mix of emotions: relief, confusion, and a renewed sense of hope. "I had no idea. He's been so kind to me," Megan nodded. "Tom has a good heart. He saw in you someone who needed support, and he wanted to help. Now, we need to address the issue at the hospital. Tom told me about Mark Donovan's harassment. We need to gather evidence and testimonies from others who have suffered under his behavior." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a surge of determination. "I'll do whatever it takes to stop him. He's been terrorizing me and others for too long." Megan smiled, a look of approval in her eyes. "That's the spirit. My team will assist you in collecting the necessary evidence. Together, we can build a strong case against Donovan." As they discussed the next steps, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the resources now available to her. Megan's influence and Tom's unexpected identity gave her a powerful ally in her fight for justice. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah, with Megan's support, reached out to her colleagues at the hospital, seeking their stories and encouraging them to come forward. The response was overwhelming. Nurses, technicians, and even some administrative staff shared their experiences of Donovan's inappropriate behavior and abuse of power. One afternoon, Sarah sat with Megan in a conference room, reviewing the gathered testimonies. "This is more than enough to take him down," Megan said confidently. Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. "I can't believe so many people were affected." "It's heartbreaking." Megan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done something incredibly brave, Sarah. By standing up, you've given others the courage to do the same." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of empowerment she hadn't experienced in a long time. "Thank you, Megan, and please thank Tom for me. I don't know where I'd be without him." Megan's eyes softened. "I will. He's very proud of you, as am I. Now, let's finish this." The day of reckoning came swiftly. With the compiled evidence, Megan's legal team filed a formal complaint against Mark Donovan. The atmosphere in Megan Stewart's office was charged with urgency and determination. The sleek, modern decor contrasted sharply with the gravity of the task at hand. Sarah sat at the conference table, surrounded by Megan's investigative team, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. Megan stood at the head of the table, her expression resolute. We've already gathered significant evidence against Mark Donovan, but we need to be thorough. Let's start with the testimonies one of the investigators, a meticulous woman named Linda, began. We've interviewed several staff members, past and present. Their stories are disturbingly similar. Mark has been using his position to harass and intimidate for years. Sarah listened intently as Linda detailed the accounts. Each story echoed her own experiences, and the weight of the collective trauma was palpable. It's horrifying to think how long this has been going on, Sarah said quietly. Megan nodded, her expression serious. It is, but we're going to stop it. With this evidence, we can make a compelling case. The team spent hours reviewing the testimonies and documents, ensuring that every detail was meticulously documented. The gravity of their task was clear. This was not just about Sarah's justice, but about protecting others from future harm. As the preparations continued, Sarah found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The pain, the fear, and the uncertainty had all led to this moment. With Megan and Tom's support, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and strength. This fight was bigger than her. It was about standing up against abuse of power and making sure no one else had to endure what she had. The formal complaint against Mark Donovan was filed, and the hospital administration was forced to take immediate action. The news spread quickly, causing a stir among the staff. Whispers of relief and hope echoed through the hospital corridors, as many had suffered in silence for far too long. Sarah's courage had sparked a movement. People who had once been too afraid to speak out now felt empowered to share their stories. The hospital began an internal investigation, and Mark Donovan was placed on immediate leave pending the outcome. One evening, as Sarah sat with Tom in the cozy cafe where they had first met, she felt a sense of hope she hadn't experienced in a long time. "I still can't believe everything that's happened," she said, sipping her coffee. "I don't know how I would have managed without you and Megan." Tom smiled warmly. "You're stronger than you know, Sarah. We're just helping you see that." The following weeks were a testament to Sarah's courage and determination. With Megan's expert guidance and Tom's unwavering support, Sarah navigated the complexities of her situation. The day finally came when Mark Donovan was held accountable for his actions, bringing a sense of justice and closure. As Sarah stood in the courtroom, the weight of her struggles lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the journey ahead would still have challenges, but she also knew she wasn't facing them alone. With friends like Tom and Megan, she felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. Stepping out into the sunlight, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the warmth on her face. The road had been long and difficult, but she had found her way through the darkness. Now, with hope in her heart and strength in her soul, she looked forward to the new beginning that lay ahead. Megan nodded. "It is, but now we have a chance to stop him." Let's move on to the video evidence. Another investigator, James, pulled up security footage on a large screen. We reviewed hours of footage from various locations within the hospital. This is from the surgical ward. The room fell silent as they watched Mark's interactions with different staff members. His behavior, once hidden behind closed doors, was now laid bare. The evidence was damning: unwanted touches, invasive comments, and moments of clear intimidation. Sarah's stomach churned as she relived her own encounters through the experiences of others. But alongside the nausea, there was a growing sense of vindication. "This is it," she whispered. "This proves everything." James nodded. "There's more. We've also found footage from a recent incident that clearly shows Mark trying to coerce a nurse into silence." The video played, and the room watched as Mark cornered a young nurse, his demeanor threatening. Her fear was evident, and the team's collective anger grew. "He's a predator," Megan said, her voice steely. "And we have enough to bring him down." Sarah looked around the room, seeing the determination in everyone's eyes. "What happens next?" "We present this to the hospital board and the authorities," Megan replied. "With this evidence, they won't be able to ignore it." Mark will face consequences for his actions. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Megan's team prepared the case meticulously, ensuring every piece of evidence was irrefutable. Sarah continued to work closely with them, providing additional details and support wherever she could. Finally, the day came to present their findings. Sarah, Megan, and the team entered the boardroom, where the hospital's board members awaited. The tension was thick as Megan began her presentation. Good afternoon. We're here to address serious allegations against Dr. Mark Donovan. Our investigation has uncovered a pattern of misconduct that cannot be ignored. She gestured to James, who began displaying the evidence on a large screen. As the board members watched the videos and read through the testimonies, their expressions shifted from skepticism to shock and anger. Sarah felt a flicker of hope perhaps justice would finally be served. When the presentation concluded, the board members conferred briefly before the chairman spoke. This evidence is compelling and deeply troubling. We will initiate immediate disciplinary action against Dr. Donovan and turn this over to the authorities. Relief washed over Sarah. The years of fear and intimidation were finally coming to an end. She turned to Megan, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you." Megan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You were brave enough to speak up, Sarah. That took incredible strength. Now, let's make sure he faces justice." As they left the boardroom, Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The fight wasn't over, but they had made significant progress. Mark Donovan would no longer be able to abuse his power. Back in Megan's office, the mood was one of quiet triumph. "This is just the beginning," Megan said. "We need to support the other victims and ensure they get the justice they deserve." Sarah nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I want to help. No one should have to go through what I did." "You will," Megan assured her. "And with your help, we'll make sure this never happens again." The courtroom buzzed with hushed conversations as people filled the seats, the anticipation thick in the air. Sarah Miller sat obviously in the front row, surrounded by a group of women who had also come forward to testify against Rick Donovan. Each one of them had experienced his predatory behavior, and today they were united in seeking justice. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The trial commenced with the prosecution presenting their case. Megan Stewart and her team had meticulously prepared the evidence, ensuring that every detail was irrefutable. Sarah felt a mixture of anxiety and determination as she waited for her turn to testify. "Call Sarah Miller to the stand," the prosecutor announced. Sarah stood, her legs trembling slightly, and made her way to the witness stand. She took a deep breath as she sat down, glancing briefly at Rick Donovan, who sat with a smug expression at the defense table. "Miss Miller, please describe your experiences with Dr. Donovan," the prosecutor began. Sarah nodded, her voice steady despite the emotional weight of her words. She recounted the harassment, the unwanted touches, and the threats. As she spoke, she could see the impact her testimony had on the jury. The gravity of her experiences, shared with such raw honesty, left a palpable silence in the room. Next, other victims took the stand, each adding their own harrowing accounts to the growing list of accusations. The pattern of abuse became undeniable, painting a damning picture of Mark Donovan's character. The defense tried to discredit the testimonies, but Megan's team had anticipated every move. The video evidence, combined with the consistent stories of multiple victims, left little room for doubt. The turning point came when a former nurse, who had moved out of state to escape Donovan's influence, provided a powerful testimony via video call. Her story mirrored Sarah's, reinforcing the undeniable truth. After days of testimonies and arguments, the trial reached its climax. The jury deliberated for hours, but to Sarah, it felt like an eternity. Finally, they returned, and the courtroom held its breath. "Have you reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor," the jury foreman replied. "We find the defendant, Mark Donovan, guilty on all counts." A wave of relief and triumph washed over Sarah. She glanced at the other victims, who shared her sense of vindication. Mark Donovan's expression shifted from smug confidence to shock and anger as the reality of his conviction set in. The judge turned to Donovan. "Dr. Donovan, you have been found guilty of multiple counts of harassment, assault, and abuse of power. Your actions have caused immense harm, and you will be held accountable. I hereby sentence you to 15 years in prison." As Donovan was led away in handcuffs, Sarah felt a profound sense of justice. The nightmare was finally over. Back at the hospital, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. The shadow that Mark Donovan had cast over the staff was lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of hope and solidarity. Sarah walked through the halls, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. In Megan's office, a small celebration was underway. "Congratulations," Sarah Megan said, hugging her warmly. "You've been incredibly brave, and your strength has made all the difference." Tom stood nearby, his eyes filled with pride. "We couldn't have done it without you." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you, both of you. I couldn't have done it alone." As the celebration continued, the hospital's director approached Sarah. "Miss Miller, I'd like to speak with you in private." Sarah followed him to his office, her heart pounding. "Sarah, in light of everything that's happened and your outstanding courage and dedication, we would like to reinstate you. Furthermore, we'd like to offer you the position of head nurse." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Thank you. It means so much to me." "You've earned it, Sarah. You've shown incredible strength and resilience. We're proud to have you lead our team." As Sarah walked out of the office, she felt a sense of accomplishment and hope for the future. She had not only survived but had also helped create a safer environment for her colleagues. With a renewed sense of purpose, she was ready to embrace her new role and the positive changes it would bring. That evening, Sarah stood in her father's room, now a place of solace rather than sorrow. She looked at his photograph and whispered, "We did it, Dad. We made things right." Her phone buzzed with a message from Tom. "Celebration dinner tonight," Sarah smiled, replying, "Absolutely." The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Sarah's modest home, casting a warm glow over the room. It was a new day, and with it came a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her head nurse badge with a mix of pride and humility. At the hospital, the atmosphere had transformed. The staff, once subdued and wary under Mark Donovan's shadow, now moved with a sense of optimism and camaraderie. Sarah walked through the halls, greeting colleagues who smiled warmly and offered words of congratulations. "Good morning," Sarah called out Dr. Emily Carter, one of the surgeons. "How does it feel to be head nurse?" Sarah grinned. "Overwhelming, but in the best possible way. I'm excited for what lies ahead." As she made her rounds, Sarah felt a surge of empowerment. She stopped by the nurses' station, where her team was busy organizing the day's tasks. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice confident. "I just want to say how proud I am to be working with all of you. Let's make today a great day for our patients and for each other." Her words were met with enthusiastic nods and smiles. The change in her demeanor, from uncertainty to assured leadership, was palpable. Later that day, Sarah walked into the hospital's administrative office to finalize some paperwork. As she was leaving, she bumped into Tom Bradford, who was now impeccably dressed in a maintenance uniform. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Sarah, you look incredible," Tom said, his smile wide and genuine. "How does it feel to be back and in charge?" "It feels amazing," Sarah replied, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "And I owe a lot of it to you. Thank you for everything." Tom shrugged modestly. "You did all the hard work, Sarah." I'm just glad I could help in some way." Sarah looked at him, her heart full. "You've been more than just help. You've been a friend when I needed one the most." Tom's expression softened. "And you've been an inspiration. Seeing you stand up for yourself and others, it's made me believe in the power of doing the right thing." They shared a moment of understanding and mutual respect. "By the way," Tom said, his tone lightening, "are we still on for that celebration dinner?" "Absolutely," Sarah laughed. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." That evening, they met at a charming little restaurant downtown. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, filled with the hum of happy conversations and clinking glasses. Over dinner, they talked about their plans, dreams, and the journey that had brought them together. "To new beginnings," Tom toasted, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Sarah echoed, clinking her glass with his. As they left the restaurant, Sarah felt a sense of peace and fulfillment she hadn't known in a long time. She looked at Tom and smiled, knowing that whatever the future held, she was ready to face it with courage and hope. For the first time in months, the uncertainty that had plagued her was replaced by a steadfast belief in her strength and the support of those who cared for her. The next morning, Sarah once again stood in front of her mirror, her head nurse badge gleaming proudly. She took a deep breath, ready to embrace the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. With renewed determination, she stepped out into the world, knowing that she had the power to make a difference, not just for herself, but for everyone who looked up to her. "Sarah, how's the first day as head nurse treating you?" Tom asked with a warm smile. "It's been amazing, Tom. I still can't believe this is real," she replied, beaming. Tom chuckled. "Believe it. You've earned every bit of it." Sarah felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Tom. I couldn't have done this without your support." Tom's smile softened. "You've always had the strength, Sarah. You just needed a little reminder." As they walked through the corridors, they discussed the changes happening at the hospital. Tom's new role as head of maintenance was a fresh start for him as well. The sense of purpose and community he felt was something he hadn't experienced in a long time. "I've got a great team," Tom said. "We're already working on improving the facilities. It's good to feel useful again." Sarah nodded. "I'm glad you're here, Tom. This place needs people like you." Their friendship had deepened over the past weeks, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. They had become each other's pillars of strength, navigating the challenges together. As they passed by a small garden area, Tom paused. "Let's take a break," he suggested. They sat on a bench, the fresh air a welcome respite from the bustling hospital. "You know," Tom began, "working here has given me a new perspective. It's not just about fixing things, it's about being part of something bigger." Sarah looked at him, her eyes reflecting the same sentiment. "I feel the same way. We're all part of a larger story, and every small act of kindness makes a difference." Tom nodded. "Exactly. And speaking of kindness, I have something for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, wrapped package. Sarah took it, her curiosity piqued. "What is it?" "Open it and see," Tom replied, his eyes twinkling with anticipation. She unwrapped the package to find a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a small, shining star. "Tom, this is beautiful," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It reminded me of you," he said softly. "A guiding star, bringing light even in the darkest times." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Thank you, Tom. This means so much to me." He smiled, placing a hand over hers. "You've been a guiding star for me too, Sarah. You've shown incredible courage and compassion. I'm proud to call you my friend." They sat in companionable silence for a few moments, the tranquility of the garden providing a perfect backdrop for their shared moment. Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady with newfound resolve. "I'm ready for whatever comes next, Tom. With friends like you and Megan, I know I can handle anything." Tom squeezed her hand gently. "And we'll be with you every step of the way. You've got this, Sarah." With the necklace around her neck and Tom by her side, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose and strength. She knew that together, they could face any challenges that lay ahead. As they returned to the hospital, the warmth of their friendship and the promise of a brighter future filled Sarah with hope. She walked through the halls with a confident stride, ready to embrace her new role and the positive changes it would bring. Later that evening, after a fulfilling day, Sarah stood in front of her mirror at home, adjusting the star pendant around her neck. It sparkled under the soft light, a symbol of the resilience and hope she carried within her. She thought of her father and whispered, "We did it, Dad. We made things right." Her phone buzzed with a message from Tom. "Celebration dinner tonight." Sarah smiled, replying, "Absolutely." The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Sarah's modest home, casting a warm glow over the room. It was a new day, and with it came a renewed sense of purpose. As she prepared for the celebration, she reflected on the journey she had been through. From the depths of despair to the heights of triumph, she had emerged stronger and more determined than ever. With the support of her friends and the strength within herself, Sarah knew that she was ready to face whatever the future held. "You've been my guiding star too," Sarah Tom said softly. Back inside the hospital, Sarah resumed her duties with renewed vigor. She worked closely with her team, implementing new protocols to improve patient care and support the staff. The positive changes were already evident, and the hospital began to thrive under her leadership. Tom, meanwhile, took pride in his work, ensuring that the hospital's infrastructure was in top shape. His attention to detail and commitment to excellence made a significant impact, earning him the respect and admiration of his colleagues. The cemetery was quiet, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the towering oaks. Sarah and Tom walked side by side, the gravel crunching softly beneath their feet. They approached Robert Miller's grave, the headstone standing as a solemn reminder of a man who had been a pillar of strength in Sarah's life. Sarah knelt by the grave, placing a bouquet of fresh flowers at its base. "Hi, Dad," she whispered, her voice tender. "It's been a while." "A lot has happened." Tom stood back, giving her space but staying close enough to offer support. He knew this visit was important for Sarah, a step towards finding closure. Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I got my job back, Dad. I'm the head nurse now. You always believed in me, even when I doubted myself," she smiled softly, wiping away a tear. "And I met someone. Tom, he's been a rock for me, just like you were." Tom stepped forward, his hand resting gently on Sarah's shoulder. "Robert, I promised to look after Sarah. She's an incredible woman, and I'm honored to be part of her life." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their words hanging in the air. The sense of peace that enveloped them was a testament to the healing power of love and memory. As they left the cemetery, Sarah felt a lightness in her heart. She turned to Tom, her eyes reflecting the gratitude and affection she felt. "Thank you for being here with me. It means more than I can say." Tom smiled, his eyes warm. "You don't have to thank me, Sarah. I'm here because I want to be, because I care about you." Their relationship had grown deeper over the months, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. What had started as a supportive friendship had blossomed into something more, a connection that neither of them had expected but both cherished. Later, they found themselves at the cozy cafe that had become their sanctuary. The familiar smell of coffee and the soft murmur of conversations created an atmosphere of comfort and intimacy. They chose a corner table, the same one where they had shared so many heartfelt talks. As they settled in, Sarah looked around the cafe, memories flooding back. "This place has seen us through so much," she said, her voice filled with nostalgia. Tom nodded. "It has. It feels like home." In a way, he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. You've come so far, and you've done it with such grace and strength." Sarah squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you, Tom. You've been my anchor." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, enjoying the peaceful ambience of the cafe. Then Tom spoke, his tone serious yet tender. "Sarah, I want you to know that whatever the future holds, I'll always be here for you. We've been through so much together, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Sarah's eyes glistened with tears, but they were tears of happiness. "Thank you, Tom. That means more to me than you'll ever know." As they enjoyed their coffee, the bond between them grew even stronger. They knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their hearts intertwined by the shared journey they had embarked upon. That evening, as Sarah returned home, she felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. The day's events had brought her closer to Tom and allowed her to honor her father's memory in a way that felt deeply meaningful. She stood in her living room, the star necklace catching the light, a symbol of hope and guidance. Looking out the window at the night sky, Sarah whispered, "We did it, Dad. We're moving forward, and we're stronger than ever." She knew that with Tom by her side, she was ready to embrace the future with confidence and love. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Sarah's modest home, casting a warm glow over the room. It was a new day, and with it came a renewed sense of purpose. As she prepared for another day at the hospital, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey she had been on and the people who had walked it with her. With her head held high and her heart full, Sarah stepped out into the world, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she was never alone. Sarah took a sip of her latte, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup. "This place holds so many memories," she said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "It's where I first found the courage to open up to you." Tom reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "And it's where I realized how much you mean to me, Sarah. You've brought so much light into my life." She looked into his eyes, the sincerity and warmth there making her heart swell. "You've done the same for me, Tom. You've been my anchor, my guiding star." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. The cafe, once a place of solace in times of hardship, had become a symbol of their journey together, a journey marked by resilience, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. Tom broke the silence, his voice gentle. "Sarah, there's something I've been wanting to tell you." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I love you. I've loved you for a long time, and I want to be with you, not just as a friend, but as a partner." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, a mix of joy and relief washing over her. "I love you too, Tom. You've been my rock, my friend, and now I want you to be my partner." They leaned across the table, their lips meeting in a tender kiss that spoke of promises and new beginnings. It was a moment of pure connection, a testament to the strength of their bond. As they pulled away, Sarah smiled, her heart full. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Tom nodded, his eyes shining with happiness. "Yes, it is. And I'm excited for everything that's ahead, as long as we're together." The cafe had become a second home for Sarah and Tom, a place where they could escape the demands of their busy lives and simply enjoy each other's company. The warm, familiar ambience wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. As they sat in their favorite corner booth, the soft hum of conversations and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee created an atmosphere of peace and contentment. "So how was your day?" Sarah asked, her fingers entwined with Tom's across the table. Tom smiled, his eyes reflecting the happiness he felt. "Busy but fulfilling." We finished some major repairs in the pediatric wing. It feels good to know we're making a difference." Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's amazing how much things have changed. Sometimes I can't believe everything we've been through." Tom squeezed her hand gently. "We've come a long way, haven't we? And I wouldn't change a thing." Their journey had been marked by challenges and hardships, but those experiences had only strengthened their bond. Together, they had faced down adversity and emerged stronger, their relationship a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Later that evening, they took a stroll through the park, the setting sun casting a golden hue over the landscape. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Sarah felt a deep sense of contentment as she walked hand in hand with Tom, their steps in perfect harmony. "Remember when we first met?" Sarah said, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "I was such a mess." Tom chuckled. "You were strong even then, Sarah. You just didn't see it. And look at you now, leading with compassion and grace." She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You helped me find that strength, Tom. I don't know what I'd do without you." Tom kissed the top of her head. "And I don't know what I'd do without you, Sarah. We make a great team." As they continued their walk, the future felt full of possibilities. The love and support they shared had transformed their lives, giving them the courage to face whatever came their way. That night, as they sat together on Sarah's porch, watching the stars, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She looked at Tom, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the porch light. "Here's to us," she said, raising her glass of wine. "To us," Tom echoed, clinking his glass against hers. In that moment, everything felt right. The past had brought them together, and the future promised to be filled with love, adventure, and the unwavering bond they had forged. They knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand, heart to heart. They stopped by a small pond, the water reflecting the colors of the sky. Tom turned to Sarah, his gaze intense and filled with love. "And I don't know what I'd do without you, Sarah. You've brought so much light into my life." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. "We've brought light into each other's lives, and I'm so grateful for that." As they continued their walk, they talked about their future dreams, plans, and the life they wanted to build together. The conversation was filled with laughter and hope, a stark contrast to the darkness they had once faced. The following weeks passed in a blissful blur. Sarah thrived in her role as head nurse, her leadership inspiring those around her. Their days were busy, but they always made time for each other, cherishing the moments they shared. One sunny afternoon, they decided to revisit the cafe where it all began. Sitting at their favorite table, Sarah looked around, a sense of nostalgia washing over her. "This place holds so many memories," she said, her eyes shining. Tom nodded. "It's where our story started, and it's only fitting that we celebrate here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, placing it on the table. Sarah's breath caught as she realized what it was. "Tom." He opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, the diamond catching the light. "Sarah, you've been my rock, my inspiration, and my love. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she looked at the man who had stood by her through everything. "Yes, Tom. 1,000 times yes." The cafe erupted in applause as Tom slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed, their hearts full of joy and hope for the future. As they sat back, enjoying the moment, Sarah reflected on their journey. They had faced their demons, overcome their past traumas, and built a life filled with love and resilience. In the months that followed, Sarah and Tom planned their wedding, a celebration of their love and the life they had built together. Surrounded by friends and family, they exchanged vows, promising to support and cherish each other through all of life's challenges. On their wedding day, the sun shone brightly, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Sarah walked down the aisle, her heart pounding with excitement and love. Tom stood at the altar, his eyes never leaving hers, a look of pure adoration on his face. As they stood together, hand in hand, they exchanged vows filled with heartfelt promises. "I promise to stand by you, to support and cherish you through all of life's challenges and joys," Tom said, his voice strong and unwavering. Sarah smiled, tears of happiness in her eyes. "I promise to love you, to be your partner and best friend, and to walk beside you in every step of our journey together." With those words, they sealed their vows with a kiss, the world around them fading away as they embraced their future together. The reception was a joyous celebration, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts from friends and family. As the night drew to a close, Sarah and Tom stole a quiet moment together, looking out at the star-filled sky. "This is the beginning of our forever," Tom whispered, his arm wrapped around Sarah's waist. Sarah leaned into him, her heart full. "I can't wait to see what the future holds for us." With love and hope in their hearts, they faced the future together, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would always have each other. The journey that had started with hardship and uncertainty had transformed into a story of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond they shared. And so Sarah and Tom began their new life together, ready to embrace every moment, every joy, and every challenge with the strength and love that had brought them together in the first place. And so, from an unexpected encounter between an unemployed nurse and a homeless man, a powerful story of resilience, love, and transformation unfolded. Sarah and Tom's journey teaches us that even in our darkest moments, there is light to be found. It's a reminder that with courage, support, and determination, we can overcome any obstacle and create a brighter future. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What have you learned from Sarah and Tom's incredible journey? Comment below with one thing you've learned and will bring into practice in your own life. If you liked this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.